Hey, good evening. Today's Bible study is coming from Genesis 27 chapter 5 through 10, 18 through 19, 21 through 29, and Pathway. This is the Pathway booklet for Sunday school. This is called Deception in the Family. And it reads as follows. Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau when Esau left for the open country to hunt for the game and bring it back. Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die.' Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats so I can prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." Genesis 27:21 through 29. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought to him, and he ate, and he brought some wine, and he drank. So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." So Isaac does all of this blessing. Jacob had deceived Esau. Amen. So, as we look in this, when we started off in the first verse, where it says Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. And like Sarah, she was eavesdropping. Um, and that's rude. We know that's rude. So if we look at Genesis 18:10, it tells you, then one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." And it says, now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Now, this was a time we weren't supposed to be in the conversation. You know how us nosy folks do. So as soon as we start being nosy, bad things happen, because it might not be your business to do or know. And this is a rude thing, and usually in regards to eavesdropping, we get information and run with it or try to do things on our own. There will be some ill intentions here, even though the Lord stated to her in Genesis 25:23, the Lord said to her, "Two nations in your womb and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." The one thing that we should realize is that Rebekah called Jacob my son and Esau his son, which makes it seem like she favored Jacob more. Rebekah said to, once again, her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau." She started spreading news and truthfully going away from what God said specifically to her, that he was going to take care of it. God told her, in the womb, she told her what was going to go on with the babies when they were in her womb. If this don't sound the same, think of Sarah and Hagar. Sound familiar? "Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die." So, what does she do? She starts scheming and taking God's plan and adding her own personal touch to it. Why would you add your own personal touch to God's plan? He already told you what the plan was. All I can say is there will be consequences for this, because God don't need your help with his plans. And the fact that he even shared a piece of the plan with you should be sufficient enough for you to let God be God. This is also showing that although she heard Isaac, the man, that she did not trust in God, creator of everything. So she heard this man say one thing, but God told her the other thing. And you know we're supposed to trust in God and submit to him. If you look at Proverbs 3, 5 through 6, y'all all know this commonality in the church. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lead not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Rebecca also did not understand that the plan that the Lord had told her were her plans, and God didn't have to tell her the totality of the plan, but just know that I, meaning God, do have a plan that is good for you and Jacob. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and plans to give you hope in a future." This verse is very true to the letter. God told her the plan that he had for her youngest child. And he said there were two nations there, but he said the younger would be the ruler. These plans will benefit and not harm, and they lead to hope in the future. The problem arises all the time when we, man, thinks that we can change God's plan. It ain't going to happen. We think we can add to the plan, Jonah. You know, we just don't do the right things. And God will get you right. And there are going to be some consequences, but he will get you right. Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Now she starts to get bad instructions to her son because of her willingness to make sure God's plan works out. That sounds kind of funny and ironic for her to make sure that God's plan works out. Then, y'all know how we used to do back in the day. Your parents would say, "Hey, if that's a bill collector, tell him I'm not here." So we were getting bad instructions. Yes, we were following the orders of our parents, but truthfully, it was a lie. And we knew it was a lie, and we felt funny most of the time doing it, but too terrified. So you can't fault Jacob here somewhat, because this is his mom and he loves her. Now this action starts a ripple effect because Rebecca becomes a stumbling block for Jacob that Jacob was not aware of as far as her scheme at this time. Now don't forget, Jacob had already manipulated Esau for his birthright, but now he going for the blessing too. If you look at Luke 17, 1 through 2, it says, Jesus said to his disciples, "Things that cause people to stumble are bound to come. Mama, daddy, sister, brother, cousin, friends. But woe to anyone through whom they come. It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble." Verse 9, it says, "Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats so I can prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it." Now we start to deal with Rebecca's deception, and deception is not of the Lord. This is when she knows what is supposed to happen, but has heard man's words and decides to do it her way. James 4:17 says, "If anyone then knows good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them." The good was as God had told her, and the sin was for her to go against God and do it her way. And we do that. You know, when we think that God is not moving fast enough, or even in our lives when someone says, "I got you," but you doubt that they truly do. In short, the true deceiver and the king of deception is Revelation 12:9. "The great dragon was hurled down," that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, "who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth and his angels with him." And Satan don't need but a crease of doubt, a sliver of doubt, and he gonna get up in there. So Satan was at work in a situation that the Lord had stated to her, and that he had, "If you just keep your faith in me and not in man." So Satan got to work. So 1 Corinthians 2:5 says, "So that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, which was Isaac saying he was going to bless Esau. The Lord had already told you who was getting this. And it says, and excuse me for jumping into the verse, but 1 Corinthians 2:5 says, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power. God already told you. Then take it to your father to eat so that he may give you his blessing before he dies. Jacob realizes now that he is deceiving his father to steal his brother's blessing and states that he will receive a curse if you read verses 11 and 12 in this chapter. Jacob did not object to the deception they planned, but only to the possibility of detection. So if I don't get caught, then I'm fine. But once again, it has to be God's way or there will be consequences. Well, then his mother steps up in verse 13 of the chapter and says, let the curse fall on me. And in verse 14 through 17, it just shows the treachery of this deception. But she even knew something bad was going to happen because she said, well, let the curse fall on me. So Genesis 27:18 and 19, 18 states, he went to his father and said, my father, yes, my son, he answered, who is it? He just straight up lied to his dad. So he approaches his father while he is out of it. And he lied to him. And you could tell Isaac was out of it because it tells you in the first verse of this chapter 27. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, my son, here I am, he answered. In verse 19, Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. More lies continue because once you start a lie, you got to add more lies to make it seem real. But the truth you can say and it's done. Look at all these actions that Jacob had to do with this lie. A, Rebecca had to prepare food. B, had to worry about being caught. C, had to worry about being cursed. D, had to lie about who he is. E, had to lie, I did so quickly because your God gave me good speed, verse 20. F, had to lie about what he had done. G, had to lie about the game food. Then you go to Genesis 27 through 29. Then Isaac said to Jacob, come near me so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son or an Esau or not. Oh, I'm sorry, I left out H. Had to lie about the touch his father needed by wearing his brother's clothes. Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He almost gets caught here in this lie. And all of this includes Rebekah because his voice was not that of Esau. Rebekah had done everything that would address Isaac's senses, except for his hearing. So Isaac should have come around to that because he said the voice is the voice of Jacob. And we all know the voice of our children and how they differ because you can even tell when a child hugs you, which child hugs you one way and which child hugs you one way. I can tell you my son Isaiah hugs me around the neck tight. My son Devin grabs me around the bottom of my chest and thinks he can lift me. There's just differences in what they do. And this time it was a voice. And the voice he caught, but he just kept going. He did not recognize him in verse 23, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he proceeded to bless him. Deception. Isaac did not realize that he was Jacob because he stated in verse 1, and then all of the trickery that they went through to fool him. Are you really my son Esau, he asked. I am, he replied. Oh, this is K. Lied to his father, point blank. Verse 25, then he said, my son, bring me some of your game to eat so that I may give you my blessing. Jacob brought it to him, and he ate, and he brought some wine, and he drank. All this mentioned above were all lies. Then his father Isaac said to him, come here, my son, and kiss me. This was probably a true kiss of affection and love because he loved Esau. Isaac loved Esau, and that is not to say that he did not love Jacob, but Esau was his firstborn. Verse 27, so he went and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field. That the Lord is blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. So Isaac does all this blessing. Jacob had deceived Esau. Funny thing here is, even when Isaac was going to do it for Esau and the Lord told Rebekah what was going to happen, Isaac still ended up blessing Jacob. Out of this deception, you are not going to get around what the Lord said is going to happen. You can do whatever you think you're going to do. Man ain't got no play here. So Genesis 25:31 through 32 says, Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright. Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" So birthright and blessing taken by Jacob. So Jacob already had some deception in him earlier. So Esau should not have felt any way because of that. Esau was kind of, I'd say, a little bit off kilter. But it does not say that they shared this with their parents. So the deception started when Jacob took things in his own hands, because in verse 23, when the Lord speaks to Rebekah and God tells her how it will be, it still came to be, even with Rebekah's deception. Also look at verse 34, last part. So Esau despised his birthright, but there was a thought about Jacob truly loving his brother, because why would you attack your brother at his weakness? But Jacob is human, and God worked through Jacob. But don't forget the curse with the work of when he had to work for Laban. And it doesn't say anything about Rebekah's death, and it never states that she got to see Jacob again. And the part where it says, "The nation shall bow down to thee," all of the 32 kingdoms of Canaan were conquered, subdued, and driven out of Palestine by the generations of Jacob. Oh, yeah. And don't forget, God fixes families and people by changing the heart. If you read a little further ahead, you'll see where Jacob had to come to Esau, and he was offering Esau all these gifts. Esau was not mad, and he loved his brother and said, I don't need these. The Lord had blessed him, and the Lord never said he wasn't going to do for Esau. He just said Jacob was supposed to receive this. But the curse was Rebekah didn't get to see Jacob again, and Jacob had to work for his uncle in a bad way. Amen.